We offer end-to-end solutions to our customers that are tailored specifically for their needs. We can deliver everything that is related to digital and IT.
Why should organizations think more about compliance and cybersecurity? What's the positive outcome they get out of that?
One of the main positives, of course, is trust. The idea is to have a comprehensive end-to-end solution of both things, of the process and the technology and tools. We are investing a huge amounts of money into firewalls, IT solutions. The person is the last line of defense. Some teenager in some part of the world with some free time and access to kind of a AI can put you out of business for a week.
Hey everyone, welcome to another podcast episode of the B2B Growth Hacking Playbook. This is a podcast that's helping B2B executives, CMOs, COOs, CEOs, and most of the executive suite, along with VPs and directors, navigate the latest and most critical challenges and risks and figure out the best ways to improve your growth strategies throughout 2025 and 2026. We are speaking with top executives across a wide variety of different services and different solutions across the spectrum, making sure that we tap on different topics such as AI, cybersecurity, compliance, regulations, M&A, growth, demand generation, and so many more, so that you can have a complete 360 picture of the digital landscape. Today with me, I have Ognyan Yuskeseliev, Chief Information Security Officer, VP, Center of Excellence Cybersecurity and Public Cloud at Telelink Business Services, which is one of the fastest growing ICT system integrators in Europe, offering end-to-end tailored services to a broad enterprise portfolio spanning across government institutions, telecoms, companies like Lufthansa, NATO, and many, many, many more. Ogi, I'm really pleased to have you here. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for the invite, and glad to be here together with you discussing some interesting topics today.
Absolutely. We've been working together with Telelink Business Services for a while throughout the digital arm of Devrix, but I had a very hard time presenting you, to be honest, just because Telelink Business Services is offering so many different things to such a broad portfolio of different organizations that I'm trying to kind of encompass kind of some of the key solutions that you're offering to the market. So would you like to try to kind of sum up yourself in a kind of an elevator pitch of what exactly are you doing and how are you helping the market today?
Yeah, maybe the best thing that describes Telelink Business Services is that we offer end-to-end solutions to our customers that are tailored specifically for their needs, starting from the lowest, if you think about the lowest level of technology, from cables, building data centers, going all the way up through the whole stack, ending with digital transformation and AI services, and also encompassing in those different layers and different stacks, whole comprehensive cybersecurity portfolio. So you can imagine that pretty much we can deliver everything that is related to digital and IT to our customers, specifically tailored for them. This is kind of a differentiating thing for us. Because we see that a lot of companies are doing just straight packaging solutions that may not fit very good your company or your business, and that's why we're offering more tailored solution throughout the stack. So yeah, pretty much, I think that encompasses our spirit. We are from Eastern Europe, but we have the thinking of a big company from the West. So
yeah, and I love it, and honestly, I really like the end-to-end positioning. That's something that we do as well on our end. Kind of most of our business, especially over the past year, is on the RevOps consultancy side. So we start top to bottom, from working with CFOs directly on P&L analysis and like 3-month plans, and then breaking them down across marketing and sales and customer excellence and doing everything else we need. But the reason I think this is so critical is we are going to talk about certain topics such as compliance and cybersecurity, some that are very important. And I think it's important that it's coming from someone who is really tightly integrated with lots of different businesses. And by tightly integrated, I mean, this is not just a cybersecurity company looking into one very specific thing amidst a pool of 1,000 different initiatives that a company needs to take care of, right? So when you're responsible for the entire end-to-end infrastructure, from hardware to digital to integrations to regulations, if you don't do it the right way, you're directly going to contradict and impact different divisions from the organization. So the only way this
Exactly.
actually works is in symbiosis, which is essentially what you're doing at TBS. And kind of one of the topics that we kind of touched on previously, kind of in an earlier conversation, is I think it's interesting to talk about that cybersecurity aspect, specifically for enterprise compliance and security as a trigger for change. How do you see those two areas as a kind of positive impact and having a positive impact on businesses instead of looking at something that's the boogeyman under the bed?
Yeah, I think still what we see in the market, that probably there are still a lot of companies that are thinking for when they hear compliance and security and regulations, they are thinking more and more for something mandatory that they need to just comply with and get over with it, get it done. And on the other hand, we see that this is kind of an opportunity. So this is an opportunity where you can look into your current process, into your current system, into your current digital landscape, and really think about how you can improve it during the process of complying with your regulation. Not only to be more secure, which is kind of a mandatory now in nowadays, because we see that with everything becoming more and more digital, and with the improvements in AI, it is even more critical to have a very secure and robust digital infrastructure. By using compliance and security as a trigger for change, you can review and improve your business processes that can really have even financial impact in the end of the day, not just strive for compliance because you need to, or you're mandatory to.
Do you want to give an example of that? And I know where you're headed here. I'm trying to think, and again, most organizations, and kind of in our previous episode, we actually discussed with Mark. I said, okay, we know that growth acquisition is super important. However, we also know how much work goes into due diligence, into the M&A, building the data rooms, and all of that. So it just looks as this tedious process that you need to work with lawyers and bookkeepers and try to figure out contracts and retention clauses and clawbacks and all of that. It's just so tedious. And I really think it's important to take a look into that from the good side of, we are doing all of that for a reason. And this is enabling us to do so many other different things in combination to that. So let's expand into this one. How do you think this is going to help organizations? Why should organizations think more about compliance and cybersecurity? What's the positive outcome they get out of that?
When we're talking about compliance and cybersecurity, maybe one of the main positives, of course, is trust. Being able to have a resilient and secure digital infrastructure, you can be a trusted partner not only to your business partners, but also to your employees, employers, and everybody. So what we see in the market is that even big companies from different sectors, big enterprises, are still susceptible to even basic attacks like ransomware, even in 2025, due to the fact that either they have some lacks in processes, some lacks in cybersecurity in terms of toolset, or some lacks of people. So what we see is that mainly those three areas can affect the whole landscape in terms of cybersecurity. And this is results in direct loss of business. So we have cases throughout the region where companies stopped working for everywhere from 1 week to 1 month. And you can imagine what are the financial impacts for something like this. So this is a kind of a one thing that what we see is that it is kind of a missed until it happened. We see that a lot of people effect is also kind of neglected, because the cybersecurity landscape, it's quite competitive in terms of people. And what we see is that for the enterprises, from time to time, it's very complicated and hard to actually motivate and retain people that are with the necessary level of skills. And this has a direct impact in the efficiency and efficacy of all the security tools. And in terms of compliance, what we see is that from time to time, some compliance regulations can improve even basic business processes. So we have business processes in enterprises that are still on paper, that are still not digitalized, and the regulations can be, you can approach the regulations in two ways. You can approach them with, okay, I just need to comply, and we can just write some documents, go to legal, and we will to some extent comply on paper, but you can approach it from the other end and see, let's see what business processes these compliance regulations are applying. Let's see if we can improve them, if we can put some real KPIs of efficiency and efficacy on those processes, and then digitalize them and make them even more secure and robust. Because more and more, what we see with even AI and now, and the whole rush for data, is that you need to protect your data, and your data and your IP that you're building for your business is the number one thing that you need to protect now. This is what I see in terms of challenges and how we can drive change in those how should I say, thinking, in the thinking of people. Because not just to see this as something mandatory that we just need to do. And in TBS, what we do is we are also looking at comprehensively. For example, when we are going to comply with some standards, we are looking from two sides. We look from technology side and from the business side. It's not possible to go out and just buy some firewall or some solution out of the box and you're just complying with something. No, the idea is to have a comprehensive end-to-end solution of both things, of the process and the technology and tools.
And I'm going to interrupt you for a second just to double click on what you said. And what we've been seeing on market, and most of the leaders that we've been speaking to, CMOs, CROs, even CFOs, they have a vendor, and the vendor is everything that you see is a nail, and everything that you see is, because you have a hammer, essentially you're just trying to tap into everything. But it's not necessarily solving the problem, right? And on the other hand, you have the consultancies, and they say, okay, we're going to build this big, especially the McKinseys and the Deloitte, there's the decks that we're going to prepare, and then you have to follow a, specific regulated framework and a 2x2 matrix and all of that. And to be fair, we also have some of these, but they're like really kind of shrink into something that's smaller and kind of reusable. But case in point is that, as you said, like bridging the technology and business process and actually making sure that both play well in the same sandbox is extremely critical. I'm curious, can you think of an example in business, a client, someone you worked with, that they came up with, for example, hey, we need this ERP or these systems, or we plan to do a warehouse this here or anything, and you had to kind of review the process and say, look, actually, this is what a better plan would look like because ABC. And I know it's kind of a broader question, but
I think maybe it's a good idea to give an example with ourselves to some extent. We started a journey into digitalizing and reviewing all of our process maybe 2-3 years ago, which is quite a focused one. So just to get a rough estimate of how big is the company, you can imagine that we are close to 500 people now, spanning across different countries, from Bulgaria, where we are headquartered, to Croatia. So pretty much we are kind of a multinational company with different offices, and we are servicing customers 24/7 across the world. So in the terms of Western society, we're kind of a mid-sized company, maybe.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we started this journey of reviewing our processes maybe 2 years ago. And what we did is we said, look, we are going to do as much as we can, automate it, as much as we can integrate it, in terms of system integration. And of course, as much as we can, we will do an overall 360 security across the board, so across everything. So in that sense, we had this approach of working in synergies, because as you said, you can have the consultancy on one hand, and then the IT on the other hand. But the problem is if they can talk to each other, because what we see is that from time to time, it's very hard for the IT to understand the business, and for the business to actually translate its requirements and what it goes to the IT. So it can this talk. I know that this is a topic for I don't know how many years still, but I think it's still a topic that's on the table. On that,
reminds me of a joke. So when I studied computers in the late 1990s, probably 1996, 1997, there was like back when I was kind of still a kid and kind of playing with computers. So the guy who was helping with IT was a friend of my mom's, and she had an accounting firm, right? And he was the guy who was building the accounting software for her. And he had a joke. Because I'm a developer and they do an accounting software, I'm the best developer among accountants and the best accountant among developers. So I think this is super important, right? I mean, so many people just
Yeah.
don't speak the other language at all, right? We have
Yeah.
no comprehension whatsoever.
Yeah, exactly. And if the IT and the business are not working together, and having not the same goal, what we see is if you're an IT and just go to the business and said, I need an X amount of money for this new shiny security tool, and the business, they if they don't understand the business impact, they don't understand why they need to invest. From time to time, it's not enough just to tell them, to tell the business, well, if you don't invest in this, maybe something bad will happen. It's not a business goal. It's not something that is aligned with the goals of the company. In that sense, what we did is we have a dedicated team that is reviewing actually the governance risk policies in the company, that works together with me as a CISO and together with the IT heads. So we have this joint team that is driving the whole digital transformation in a secure way and in compliant way. So we are trying to answer to all of regulatory requirements and compliances, but next to improve our process in the meantime. For example, I can give you an example. We are now in the process of certifying ourselves for SOC 2 and 3, which are specific certifications. And during that certification process, we are reviewing every business process that is impacted by them. And as well, we're reviewing the tools, processes, and technologies and people that are involved in those processes.
Yeah, that's super helpful. A full 360 overview, essentially.
Full 360. And what we're trying to do is improve the process as we go. So we have continuous improvement. We look into regulations and into compliance as something, external trigger to a complex system. That is something that you need that's something that is provoking a new adaptation of that complex system to make it better. So yeah, this is something that we started, and I can tell you that we are seeing definite improvements across the board, from onboarding to offboarding, from data management, and from everything. For example, we started, I can give you an idea, we started building secure data lake for our own company, and now it's even easier because we said, okay, we see that we have different processes that we need to integrate. For example, we're working with personal data, we need to protect it. So we're going to protect it by implementing those digital workflows. Then we will implement, for example, a big data solution that we will have a centralized repository. And then it's even easier, because we have a big data solution, let's enable AI and do that in a secure, compliant way. So yeah, this is our approach, and this is what we try to do for a lot of our customers. We have customers that have the consultancy part, and then we are helping with the IT part. So we are just augmenting their internal IT team and just understanding the business context, the consultancy recommendation, and then finding the best fit, the tailored fit for their solution. And then we have the other way around, where the customer IT team, for example, says, okay, can you help us with some of the processes? Can you help us review what can be improved? This is something that we're doing around NIS2 directive that is going to be kind of implemented soon. And to some extent, we're helping also to some of our banking customers with, for example, DORA requirements that are in the EU. So yeah, and we have other customers that are just saying, okay, can you do everything? So can you do end-to-end review our infrastructure and just say, give me a roadmap? because from time to time, the most hard part is to align the IT needs with the business requirements and then give a vision. Then give the business guys a vision when they can be in terms of IT and digital in 5 years, and then this a rough roadmap that they can follow by their IT team, for example. So yeah.
How are you staying in touch with the kind of the latest regulations? Because again, there are different reasons why enterprise customers come to you, right? And it's a brand, trust, case study, sport, like all of that, right? And expertise, of course, is one of these. And expertise is driven by trust that you know what's needed and kind of where everything is headed and kind of what's coming up and how to actually comply with these regulations. So how are you kind of staying on top of that to ensure that you can always predict and kind of consultant inform of, hey, this regulation is coming up, it's probably going to roll in the next 2 years, we're getting ready, this kind of boilerplate framework. How is that structured internally for you?
That's a very good question, and actually one of the main goals of my team that is in the company. But we have a twofold approach. So the first approach is that currently in the company we have centers of excellence that are focused on driving strategic areas and looking forward into the future with them. So we have cybersecurity, we have public cloud and automation, we have IoT, and we have big data and AI. So we see in those four bets areas where we want to grow, we want to develop, and we want to look strategically in them and invest strategically in them, because we see that they're going to be critical for our enterprise customers, not only enterprise customers, but government as well. What are the goal of the centers of excellence? They need to look over the strategy. They need to look over what are the new things that are coming up in the market. They need to look into the demand from the market, and they need to look into the current capability of our company. So this is like a 3-dimension cube that needs to be kind of managed. And the idea here is that when we see something that is coming up strategically, we need to build knowledge strategically into the company to help servicing our clients. So this is the first thing that we do. And we see that some customers have the same approach in their kind of a business operation. So some enterprises have centers of excellence internally that are again related to some of their business bets that that are relevant to their vertical or their industry. And the second thing is that we are actually driven to be on the cutting edge, because we are delivering services, or we're delivering, for example, managed detection and response services like service security operations centers to our customers. We need to be on top of things. So this is kind of our core business, and that's probably one of the differentiators, because our very frequently, actually 90% of the time, the main business of our enterprise customers is not IT. If we want to be competitive, we need to be 100% on top of it, and we need to be on the head of the wave. But pretty much this is how we do it. So we have the structure and the process in the center of excellence, and then we have the drive that is coming from the customers and even from day-to-day operations that we are servicing to keep us constantly on track and constantly checking for new technologies. And we have let's call it a third pillar, where we are checking the new regulations because we are working quite closely with regulatories in the EU. So we see for us what is going to impact us as a medium to large company. We do a lot of mergers and acquisitions as well. So we are looking into the effects on that as well, due to the fact that we operate into several markets. Some of them are not EU markets. We are constantly looking into regulations, and we can spot regulations that are going to impact us and then make a judgment what is going to be the impact of those compliance and regulations to our enterprise customers. And not even enterprise, to some extent, some government customers as well.
What do you think are some recurring risks that are kind of hitting a broader area of customers or segments or markets, categories, demographics maybe? Some that I'm thinking, just to give you an example, is again, the Cyber Resilience Act, all the AI acts right now, because we don't really know how to handle compliance or PII or anything around that. Any data privacy acts in the US, because they already have a few, and different states are also
Yeah.
trying to roll some. CCPA has been around for a while, and then different states have also been plugging in. But what would you say are some that are definitely coming up in 2025, 2026, and 2027 as well, that are a broader range of organizations or specific markets are going to be affected, and you're kind of tackling this?
Well, currently what we see, and it's on the table, is of course NIS2, the directive coming from the EU for resiliency. This is definitely on the table together with the AI Act. What we see in the AI sphere is that we see a lot of projects, a lot of POCs that probably are going to generate then a lot of demand for governance on those things. I can give you an example. I was talking with a friend that he was doing some banking. He was applying for some loan, and then he was automatically rejected by AI. So of course,
That's a
you can
shame.
imagine. But the problem is that he said, "Okay, I will request to see how I was evaluated," because of course the evaluation was wrong. When he was, applied for another bank, of course he was immediately approved, and so on and so on. And this is the thing that what we see is that when you implement something, you need to think about the governance and the security perspective. And with the AI projects, I think what we will see is that they are becoming more and more relevant. We have a lot of AI projects, and what we see is that there is going to be demand for the governance of those AI for such a situation, for example. Just to understand, because in those acts you need to tell exactly why and how was taken that decision, from compliance point of view, because it's an automated decision. This is a thing, and yeah, I already spoke about NIS. NIS is something that it's something that's still coming in Bulgaria, especially, and in the whole EU. I think it's a piece of legislation that is quite good, because it is improving the cybersecurity across the union, and it standardizes it. So, for example, when you're in the manufacturing business, or when you're doing business across borders, you, by ensuring that the other company is NIS compliant with the regulation, you ensure that you're talking on the same language, on the same level in terms of cybersecurity. So this is leveling the playing field in terms of minimum cybersecurity requirements across the union, which is kind of a thing that can enable even better, business across the borders and more secure. So I think those two things are going to be relevant, especially with the AI coming up as well.
Yeah, I wanna touch in on two things: innovation and AI as next steps. Before I jump into that, because you mentioned banking and getting rejected, I've been in a similar boat at least a couple of times. My Mercury account was rejected in a similar fashion. One tweet, and 6 hours later, it was actually enabled. I've had other
Yeah.
all that risk management and compliance things. I had my PayPal fraud, like my corporate PayPal frozen for 17 days up until again that got escalated. So I've had my Stripe, even though I also have a Stripe at last company. This got banned overnight just because of some credit card skimming overnight. And this is the reason I'm mentioning that. It's happening far more often than most people actually realize. It's happening literally it's happening every single day, and it's happening with many public companies and banks and financial organizations and even governments. That's why we have data leaking from governments, from companies like Google. We have other scary aspects, such as companies like 23andMe. That's one of the largest kind of and just going bankrupt and selling their data for pennies on the door, and even for scraps, pretty much. And people's
I
biological
was their
markers.
customer.
Yes, I know. That's
I
this is
was their
absurd.
customer.
This is
Yeah.
absurd. How does that make you feel? I mean, for real, like it's an
Um,
actual what's happening with data.
yeah, I download my data, cancel it. So
Yeah.
it's crazy. But all of those things have another aspect that in the cybersecurity world and in the business world is sometimes missed. and this is the people aspect. So we are investing a huge amounts of money into firewalls, IT solutions, consultancy, so on and so on. But the truth is that the person is the last line of defense, and we are continuing to see that. And continuing to see that if we are not engaging properly with our people and not educating them constantly, all of those investment in IT security is zero. And even I can tell you that what we see internally in the company is that the investment in IT is having, how should we say, to some extent, negative effect on the people. Why? Because they're making them complacent. For example, they're not receiving anything as spam. So if something go through, they are just saying, "Oh, I never receive spam messages, so I can go ahead." It's something true and something legit. So what we see is that more and more we see demand and shifting into the mindset of the enterprise companies, into shifting and investing into people. Just as you said, because even if we have perfect defenses, perfect process, and so on and so on, the people are the last line of defense, and they need to think. As you said, for example, 23andMe, you need to think of the implications of the whole thing, and you need to think when you receive an email and you have some gut feeling that something is not wrong, just not to go into that complacent mode and said, "Oh, okay, but I never receive a spam messages," for example. And more companies, what we see is that they're investing in that human factor, and that improving those human factors. And to some extent, this is part of the coming regulations to invest into learning, into testing, and so on and so on.
Really, really insightful, and I do agree that people are both the last line of defense and sometimes the weakest link.
Yeah.
If we think of the movie with Kevin Mitnick from like 25 years ago, and all the social engineering that occurred out there, even the most
exactly.
brilliant systems, And I actually that also reminded me, there was a Salesforce Security League just a week ago or so, if I'm not mistaken, and it happened with some of the large companies like Walmart and maybe Monday.com and like some other like top companies. And again, I may be misquoting, but literally public companies, multi-billion dollars and all that. And kind of I dove into that. Looked like a third-party Salesforce app being installed, but it was installed as social engineering again.
Yeah.
Right. It was maliciously, you need to install this app because ABC or the wrong phishing with the wrong link of an app or something, and then again leaking millions and millions of records from companies like that, which is happening a lot. And again, tapping into AI and cybersecurity and compliance. How are you currently treating AI implementation and augmentation for businesses today? Are you implementing the top LLMs and kind of wrappers around them? Are you building, let's say, Llama solutions for clients? How are you kind of protecting customer data within the current realm right now, with specifically in the LLM world?
Well, this is a very interesting topic. Currently, this is under the COE of Data and AI, which is led by my colleague Polly. But the idea here is that, again, we are looking into tailored solution, because we have customers, in the banking industry, where they want to do some LLMs locally on their local data. So they're evaluating either building some capacity, in their local data center, or maybe renting a capacity into a specific cloud provider. So what we're seeing is that we are working with different type of LLM solutions, either from open sources or from some of the big vendors. But when we're talking about AI, we're talking about not only with LLMs. So we have different projects like visual recognition, which is into the not something as hot as LLM, but still an AI, and still
Absolutely.
has quite a business value. But from perspective of security, we're looking into a different type of systems that are evaluating what are the responses if there's something malicious going on into the LLM. Because from security point of view, I think that those adversarial attacks that are going to come from AI, we're just getting started. Probably everybody know about the Hong Kong phishing that sent millions of dollars due to the different AI, vision AI for the corporate VP that is calling you and so on and so on. But I think we're just seeing that. So the trend there is that AI probably is going to generate a lot of new threats, even some, how should you say, intelligent malware. What we're seeing now is that probably this is the next thing. The entry level into hacking and into creating a malicious payload is decreasing. So this means that even people with a lower level of skills can do quite a significant impact with the correct AI.
Even
And
script
this,
kiddies can now vibe code their own
yeah,
exploits,
of
essentially.
course, yeah. That's really scary, because if you think about it, uh, some teenager in some part of the world with some free time and access to kind of a AI can put you out of business for a week. I don't know, so something like this. Those security threats are going to evolve probably very fast with the implementation and the adoption of AI. So what you can do is then ensure that you have robust, how should I say, process for implementing a security solution and change management fast. Because, for example, if you have 6 months or 1 year process of selecting a security software, then implementing it, and so on and so on, you're 1 year behind the newest threats. So this is something that's in the area, in the years where we are living now, with the AI developing so fast. 1 year is a huge amount of time.
You're leading me straight to the last question that I actually have, which is how are you handling innovation in times that are moving so fast? With like, while adhering to all the compliance and the regulations, how are you making sure that you're still as close to the latest and greatest as possible? How are you bridging the gap so the decisions are faster and innovation is still not like super suppressed?
Well, we're trying to do, it's kind of a process and mentality. So we are still have our engineering mentality in TBS in the management part. So we like to tinker, with the latest and greatest. We are trying to do as much as proof of concepts in our own environment. So there is this saying of eating your own dog food. So we are trying the almost everything on the market to make sure first we understand what is on the market, and then secondly to make how should I say, informed solution, informed recommendation to our customers. And we're trying to keep everything streamlined and keep on open-minded. So we are structuring the innovation again into the COEs. So we are putting everything that is around implementation of new projects, evaluation, into the centers of excellences. And then you have this strategic spearhead that is responsible and accountable for driving those innovations and testing. When you have this as a focus, you make sure that it's not diluted by everyday work or something like this, because it can happen. If you have a lot of hats, then it's complicated.
Absolutely, definitely what you hear, and kind of what we normally do, and kind of on the agency side is for certain businesses, especially regulated and publicly know that, we actually either spin up separate LLCs where we do experiments and we run them in parallel. So there's a contract between a company that's entirely designated for the corporation, so that it acts independently, but it's not formally owned. And if the experiment is successful, we either transfer it to the parent company or they do a quick micro acquisition in a sense to kind of own that. So we set up experiments separately, independently from the business, running as almost independent small LLCs, and then we kind of move them over to just speed some things up when compliance need to be hit.
Pretty much the same. What we just, those experiments, we are just calling them proof of concept, and we are just doing that into a limited set of our production environment or test environment. And then if it's okay and if it's something better, we just move it to production straight away.
Amazing. Okay, what are the markets that are right now you're growing and TBS is growing over the next 18 months? What are some key markets that you're investing money, time, infrastructure, resources over the next 18 months?
Well, we're looking into expanding more to the West. So we're going to UK, Germany, those type of Western markets. We're looking into getting more and more traction. We're seeing a lot of traction there and a lot of need for, more tailored and custom solutions in terms of IT. So we're looking into Slovenia, those type of markets we're actively looking into getting into.
Great. And I'm also bringing this up for all of our kind of the audience here from the States. I was just back from the UK last week, and I noticed some news in Financial Times that more and more US folks are buying apartments and houses in the UK. So there's kind of all of that global transformation and making sure that people are operating in different places. And I think it's also important for even for North Americans to figure out that there's a lot happening on the European front as well, and we are expanding hard here.
Yeah, that's true. We are servicing customers in the US as well. So we do have also a footprint in the US that we're trying to expand as well.
We can both vouch that the first computer was made by an original Bulgarian. So
Yeah.
Jonathan Asp inventing the
Yeah.
computer. Everyone can say
Yeah.
thanks at least for this one.
Yeah, that's true.
I love it. Well, thanks a lot, Ogi, for your time. Super helpful, really very insightful. I love the narrative of compliance regulations being something that's great, giving you an opportunity to review, reassess where you are, see it as a positive sign, clear some kind of caveats and make sure that everything is streamlined in the future. Where can people learn more about you and also about TBS?
Yeah, you can always reach me in LinkedIn. So pretty much I'm responsible there. And of course, you can go ahead and just check out our website, tbs.tech, and follow us in the socials, where we are trying to, get some good content up regarding tech and some regulations as well.
And your awesome academic efforts as well that have been going on for a while now too.
Yes, that's also true. That's the last part that we talk about people. We This is kind of our mission is to invest in education and continuing invest into the local market in Bulgaria, and we are doing something called TBS Academy, that we are providing opportunities for young people to get into the IT pretty much for free. So
that's incredible, and I really admire you for that. Everyone, to learn more about that, make sure you check out Telelink and Augie's LinkedIn. We're going to add links at the footer. Like this episode to support education, especially in times of AI, where education is not as popular or is not necessarily tied to business. TBS and their academy are offering opportunities for teams. So really, really stoked about that. Again, if you like the show, please press like, ask a comment in the footer. I'm going to make sure I pass on to the team. And thanks again, and see you in the next episode.